This video is about my near-death experience that happened a little bit over 10 years ago, and it's had quite a profound impact on my day-to-day experience and how I interact with the world. And I think it's very important, the underlying message that I received from that, and I think it's very important to me to share it with others, because I think that our reality is a little bit heavier than I think we tend to make it out to be. And so, without further ado, November 3rd, 2012. I don't know if you guys remember what you were doing, but I was riding a four-wheeler in my front yard, just got home from work, having a good old time. I started climbing a hill. I was only going, not very fast. Like, if you're walking, you would have been going faster than me. And so the hill was pretty steep, and the four-wheeler kicked up, and I landed on the ground in the back rack, which this was a very large ATV, and it weighed about 600 pounds. And there's a large back metal rack that whenever it kicked me off, I was laying on the ground, and the rack landed right on my skull right here. And there's still an indentation because I wasn't wearing a helmet. And so, I was laying on the ground for a while. I wouldn't say a while, but, long enough. And 911 got there, and the hospital was 4 miles away. And between the time that I got picked up and the time that I got to the hospital, I lost a gallon of blood, 1 gallon in the ambulance. And so, I bled quite a bit just out of my skull. Just, I never really lost consciousness, but my experience of it, I thought I had won the lottery, and I was in the back of a money truck, and I was going to the bank to pick up my billions and billions. And so I never really lost consciousness through the whole experience, but my perception was a little bit skewed for a good portion of it, whether it's from lack of blood, lack of oxygen because the blood was going into my lungs, or just heavy drugs from being sedated and such. And so the hospital, it took them the better part of the evening to get me stable enough to get airlifted to a more robust hospital. And so I had a lot of surgeries that night, a lot. And so my head was so swollen that they had to remove 2 large pieces of my skull, larger than quarters, and they kept those in their fridge next to their sandwiches and stuff for a while until my brain would come down with the swelling. It's called a craniotomy. And also had a few sizable hematomas at the time. Also, those are blood clots in the brain, and so the damage was certainly done. And I couldn't breathe because I had so much blood that I ingested, and it went into my lungs. And so I have 4 large chest tube scars from the drainage that was coming out of my lungs. And so people didn't recognize me for a while. Like, my face was swollen, I had tubes everywhere. Like, it was I'm sure we've all seen pictures of people that are pretty messed up, and I was certainly one of them. No plastic surgery. It's wild. I'm pretty lucky. And so throughout, I don't know the timeline, but I died 5 times throughout that experience, and from losing so much blood. I required about 10 gallons of blood throughout the whole thing, And so I was bleeding quite a bit, and so it's pretty wild. I had about a 20% chance of living, and that wasn't even like walking. That was just like, still having a heartbeat and still being alive. And so I a lot of these numbers I still remember, like percentages and like gallons of blood, even though it's been this many years later. And so yeah. And during that time, it was an induced coma that they had to put me into so that I wouldn't further injure myself. And so whenever they would try to bring me out of it, I would always like try to like take out the IVs and stuff like that. And they even had mittens on me so I wouldn't do some damage. And so I was in a coma for about a month, and I remember everything, like what was going on around me, hearing people talk, but through many filters and just like voices and stuff. But I have some pretty vivid visuals from that, just like my mind trying to make sense of everything. And so I got to experience the afterlife, and that was it was incredible. And yeah, it was pretty wild. I don't know, the English language has quite a few words, but I can't really describe it better than that. So I got to see my body like in the hospital bed, and I was like chilling in the corner of the room, like, oh yeah, there's my body. And so I got to experience the nature of the universe and what that's like, and how how we experience life on this planet, and what that means, like, to be a part of this planet. And so now I'm gonna break away from like my accident, and now it's going to my what it's like to be dead. And so my experience is that when we die, we get to experience the universe, and the universe is all-knowing. And so it's this really wild feeling of like being able to know everything, and like not have to like try to learn something or remember something. And so we are all, every single one of us is part of the universe. And so the universe is all knowing, but it doesn't have a lot of experience. And so what the universe really wants is to be able to experience things. And so each and every one of us, we have our own sort of parameters that we have. And we how people are like, oh, it's genetics, I can't lose weight. But really, we all have sort of these limitations that have been put on us so that we can each experience life differently, in such a way that when we interact with each other, we get all these different experiences. And so it's really incredible to think about how you treat others is how you treat yourself. And it's no truer than after experiencing that. Like, yeah, I've probably been shitty to people since my accident, but I try not to be. And so really the best thing that you can do is to have compassion towards others. Really, that's really like no matter what. And so I think with all of these things that are happening, all of these things that we don't agree with, that's the universe saying, hey, let's test your boundary of where you draw the line of compassion at. And so you know, things like climate change. We see all these people doing things that really accelerate it, and we don't have any control over the situation at all. And so, all of these things are happening so perfectly in such a way that that it's like it's undeniable that the universe is trying to get a reaction out of us. Why do we tell jokes to each other? Well, we want a reaction out of people. Why do we do a lot of the things that we do? Why do we seek so much attention at times? We're trying to get a reaction out of things. And so the universe would like to see us be more compassionate towards people, even if they're actively doing something that we see causes harm. And so, those people that go around causing a lot of harm, they're the ones that need the compassion the most. And so, you see people that are like really stressed out, and like they do some really crappy things to people. And so, they struggle so much just living with themselves. Why do they have to struggle more? Like, why do you have to, push more stress onto them because you're not happy with how they interact with the world? And so, that's a tough pill to swallow. That's really tough. And so, yeah, it's like with all this knowledge, where do we go from there? Or where do I go from there with all of this experience? And how do I'm not the best at being compassionate towards others. It's certainly a practice. Yeah, this is going to be a long video. I hope you took some time to watch it. And so, all of these things that happen in our life, when you really take a step back and you really, analyze it in such a way that's very not biased, you're able to see just how perfectly things line up. Even if in the moment you're very frustrated, you didn't get what you want, you really, we get all these ideas of the life that we should be living, and really the word should, you really it really puts a filter on our life that we see through a lens that isn't reality. And so after my experience with death, I have no hesitancy to know that I'm well taken care of. There's nothing for me to fear. Like I'll still get scared over certain things, but really, like, the Earth is just a place that we are experiencing in this time and space. Also, I experienced that things like money and time is all an illusion. And so think about times that, the time went by really quickly, because you were having such an experience that took up a lot of time. And it's like, yeah, you can say, well, I have X amount of days, but really, like, the time compresses and the time expands. It's never really a constant. Like, the way that we experience time and space is really varies on the experience that we're having. And so you could watch the clock on the wall and be like, hey, 2 hours went by, but really our perception of time can vary greatly. And also money. Like, think about like how money comes along when you need it. And I I definitely, still struggle with it a little bit, but I feel like if I don't have the money for something, like, that's okay. Like, we I've been able to experience incredible things with $5 in my bank account, and I've been stressed out about money with $5,000 in my bank account. You know, it's all about our perception and what the universe has, um, laid out for us to experience. And so, if I needed more money right now, guess what I would have? I would have more money right now. But I've been trying to save up, and it's amazing what can come up that costs a lot of money. Like, my truck broke down, like the steering went out completely. Like, I thought I could drive it a little bit longer before the steering would completely go out, but no, all of a sudden, boom, $3,000 down the drain. Well, not down the drain, like, truck got fixed. But you're gonna meet these levels of resistance when you're trying to work towards a goal that you think that you really need. And so, um, my wife and I are trying to buy land right now, and it's been kind of tough to save up money, inflation and all. But if if we were to fast forward a few years from now and look at how things panned out, we'll see just how perfectly things worked out for us. I bought a piece of property in North Carolina that was meant to happen, and I bought it for almost no money, and it was the perfect location. It really worked out perfectly in such a way that, like, I couldn't have planned it. And, like, the way that I met my wife, it was like the most beautiful thing. Like, I don't know, Disney would probably make a movie about it if we weren't just covered in mud all the time, but beautiful nonetheless. So, hopefully I explained things clear enough. So, I was in the coma for about a month, and once I got out of the coma, I was only in inpatient rehab for 2 weeks before they were like, "All right, you're good enough to go home. You're doing everything okay." And it's really incredible to go through something like that and have no long-term effects. And really, another incredible part is that I racked up $750,000 of medical bills and ended up paying less than $20 for everything. And that just goes to show that, like, I'm lucky, yeah, and not everybody is that lucky, but I think it's really important to analyze your sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but just how things have lined up with expensive things, or experiences that were undeniably amazing. And so there's certainly a greater force at work. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I got some cool stories, and I'm still alive, and I'm doing okay. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I don't think I left anything out.